All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's the Samurai Brothers. This is John, and I have my brother Matthew here with us today. And we are on episode 35 of the Samurai Brothers podcast. And so, Matthew, we've got a pretty loaded episode today as far as sumo is concerned. We're going to kind of cover the aftermath of the Haru Basho. They made the announcement for the wrestlers who are being promoted to the Juryo division. They normally do that right after the Basho is over when they do the Banzuke committee discussions and kind of go into what the Yokozuna Deliberation Council thinks of Hoshoryu's performance. And obviously we have the US Sumo Nationals that happened in Austin. We didn't go just because we're just trying to take care of a lot of things, but we do have news about next year's location, in which we do fully intend to participate in that. And then lastly, we are going to cover just the frenzy regarding the transfer portal in NCAA wrestling. So Matthew, let's get right into it, shall we? So I'll share my screen just to kind of give a few things about what's been going on. Let's jump into the new as far as Ozumo or Pro Sumo is concerned. So there was this thing about that they do have some new wrestlers being promoted to the Juryo division. In total, there are going to be 4, which means that there are going to be 4 relegated down into the 3rd division. So the new debuts are going to be Miyagi from Nakamura Beya. He will now be known as Miyano Kaze. We're going to have Mudoho. We'll talk about him in a second. And then we have Mita, who's also from the Futagoyama Beya, run by the former Miyabiyama. And then Dai Amami from Oita Kaze Beya. He'll be returning to the 2nd division. So, it kind of, I would say probably about an average, 3 or 4 can get switched in between the 2 divisions. So, Matthew, to kind of cover about Mudoho, and for those who don't know, Mudoho is the brother of Oho. So we're going to have 3 pairs of brothers in the Sekitori rank for the Mei Basho, Matthew, and those first brothers, the first pair of brothers, I'm sure you know of, right?
The Waka brothers?
Yes. So the Onami brothers, Wakataka Kage and Wakamoto Haru. And I'm expecting that they're going to be promoted to Komusubi together. And then we have Tobizaru and Hidenoumi. Tobizaru holding his own up in the upper Makuuchi ranks, and Hidenoumi who's kind of down below. But this is going to be the 3rd pair of brothers in the Sekitori ranks. Mudoho is actually the youngest brother or the youngest grandson of Taiho, and with Oho being the 3rd youngest. And then they do have their older brother, Naya, is wrestling down in the Sandanme division. And then there's an older brother, as the great King Tamayama would say. There is an older brother, Yukio, but he is a pro wrestler. So that's going to be interesting. It's nice to see that there's another person with a pedigree kind of trying to live up to. Obviously, there's expectations when you're the son or the grandson of a Dai Yokozuna, right? The pressures are going to be there.
Yeah, it is one of those things where, yeah, they're the grandsons of the guy who up until Hakuho was the greatest sumo wrestler of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just one of those things where there's kind of there's always expectations when a family member is able to sorry, I'm getting over I think the flu, but people do have an expectation of people who kind of are descended from greatness, which it's one of those things where I don't know if that's necessarily fair because of the fact that you're every person's different. Just because you can inherit some athletic ability or some learned ability doesn't mean you're necessarily at that person's level. Not Hakuho.
Taiho or
uh
Hakuho?
Oho
Oh,
is
Oho.
clearly not his grandfather in terms of expectations, and it's just one of those things where I do think there is a little bit of unwarranted stuff. Like, it's one of those things where we come from a long line of on both sides of the family of people who forged their own destinies and weren't kind segued into one thing. I mean, on our dad's side, we come from a long line of carpenters, and while I have, kind of started doing some personal artwork in that regard, it's I'm not gonna be. It's like I'm not a carpenter. It's so it's it and wrestling we kind of picked up from ultimately it was another one of those things where we forged our own destiny. Coincidentally, our uncle wrestled, but he only wrestled briefly in high school. So
Yep.
it's just one of those things where it's like, because it's it's nice that they have the love of sumo and stuff like that, but it's the reality is it's kind of hard to live up to somebody's expectation. Kind of the same what's it called? Same pressure that Koto Zakura is kind of having right now, because he's a third generation consecutive guy. I don't know what Oho
They
and
are
his
too.
brothers, what the
Because
generation in between did.
well, their father is Takatoriki,
Oh, okay.
who, as we know, did win a Yusho, and he was Heia mates with Takanohana back in the day.
Yeah.
So he reached Sekiwake. So Oho has reached the level of his father, but now it's like, okay, is he gonna surpass that and be at least at the same rank as his grandfather? We don't know. That's to be determined.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, but but you've got some, the guys who are newer and who are just forging their own destinies. That's more of a thing where they don't really have any expectations, so they're going out there, just it's doing it for the love of it without having as much pressure. Like
Mhm.
Takeru Fuji does come from the way that I describe the difference between Takeru Fuji and like Oho or Koto Zakura is that Takeru Fuji does come from a sumo background, but it's an amateur sumo background. So
Mhm.
he doesn't have as much pressure in old sumo. He's already exceeded what his grandfather or his father did, because they never did old sumo. So he doesn't have as much pressure. And then of course you have a guy like Onosato, who doesn't even come from a sumo background. Again, no pressure. They're out
Yeah,
there
but
doing things on their own terms. Like I said, like how we did things on our own terms. We didn't come from any kind of expectation. And I think also the fact that we went to different high schools. You
mhm.
went to Nishifuji, and I went to Villa Park. I think that also helped in terms of differentiating themselves. And of course, then we went to different colleges. You went to SAC, you wrestled there. I went to, oops, wrong one. I went to MOBAP, and we just had different
Mhm.
expectations. And of course, now
Right.
we may be doing sumo together, but we're in different weight classes. So it's just one of those things where, yeah, I do feel like the pressure is kind of, um, I don't think it's fair, but we do have a tendency to think of, if you're coming from a family, that you're going to have that greatness, but it it doesn't always translate. And like I said, you're your own person. So I
Well,
mean, we'll see how it goes. We'll just see how
yeah,
it goes.
interesting to see how, like, especially because an interesting stat I've found so far in regards to Onosato. Onosato's only in his this was only his eighth basho in the Makuuchi. division, and he's already won 3 Yusho. And also, right now he does have, and we'll see, if he's continuing to be great in this, because for what I'm seeing so far, he does share a unique trait. Well, not trait. He shares a unique stat so far with Taiho, and that is that he's won a Yusho in so far every single calendar year that he's been in the top division. Which technically this is only his second calendar year, but so far, I mean, he's already done it for 2025. He did it twice in 2024. So he doesn't even have to worry about winning a U show for the rest of the year, but he can still keep that streak going. So that'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Well, obviously, if he wants to get to Yokozuna, he obviously wants to keep winning, at least one more Basho this year.
Well, he needs to win it next Basho if he wants to make it for July.
At minimum.
Yeah, at minimum. So I want to
just digressing a little bit. Another example of that kind of unwarranted pressure would be our current Yokozuna, Hoshoryu, who is the nephew of Asa Shoryu. And I there might be a little bit more pressure because of the fact that it comes from that Bak, the Mongolian sumo background, and so. And as we know, we're still in the midst of the Mongolian era. I mean, just because Hakuho's out doesn't mean that,
And Teruno Fuji.
Yeah, there's another Yokozuna, and it's a Mongolian. We haven't. I'd say that the best chance we have to getting a non-Mongolian Yokozuna is probably gonna be Onosato. Because Kotozakura just has not had the consistency.
I think he caved to the pressure in January.
Yeah,
I think he got hurt. Yeah, like he barely squeaked out an 8 and 7 to preserve his rank.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can only imagine what his father Koto Nowaka was probably saying to him, because let's be honest, he's a nepo baby. He's when we saw Koto Nowaka when he was doing his thing, and then now, so he's probably like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Kind of segueing into Hoshoryu. So the Yokozuna Deliberation Council did weigh in on things. So they did say that obviously it was disappointing that he had to pull out, but if it was related to injury, that there's not really much that he could do at that point, and that they do want to see him come back and to be trying to come back stronger. It does look like they don't want to get too critical of him, obviously with the first Basho, and he's so far, demonstrated, I guess, some hinkaku to it. So on the flip side, though, Onosato's Tsunatori chances to make Yokozuna are definitely open. So we depending on how he does next Basho, it looks like we could see that. Maybe a new Yokozuna this year, but again, nothing is ever certain in the world of sports, right, Matthew?
Yeah. Something I will say is that if Onosato were to be promoted, if he does well enough this next Basho, at that point, I'm gonna guess that the deliberation committee is gonna be they're gonna go from being a little less stringent to probably being more stringent, to doing that more of the the 3 performances in a row guideline, because at that point there's 2 Yokozuna and one of them hasn't had injuries. I mean, let's face it, this is not the first time that Hoshoryu's had injury issues. I'd like to know what it was, because he didn't have anything visible. Like he didn't have anything wrapped up or anything like that compared to in the past when he's had like an ankle wrap or something.
It looks like the reason that they are giving in the article I'm looking at does say that it was an elbow injury. So I don't know, probably around it was something in his arm. Probably he just wasn't able to go full strength.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
anyway.
well, an interesting thing is Ono Sato had those cut marks all the way down his back, and he won the basho. But then again, the cupping, that's not necessarily a sign of injury. That's just a sign of, it's like he might have like pulled his back or something like that, and he had to get that therapy done, and it clearly worked because he won the basho. And
Right.
the thing is, the first time I was introduced to that whole cupping philosophy was ironically enough in the remake of the Karate Kid with like Jaden Smith and Jack Black. But it's since then I've learned that it's used quite a bit. Like very often you'll see UFC fighters go into fights with those cupping marks all down their back, and it's just like, well, it helps them because
Right.
they go out there and they perform. And I'd argue MMA is a little bit more intense. MMA is more intense in that it's like a short, it's short but intense. Whereas sumo, they have to go out and perform for 15 days. I mean, you don't see, I don't think in any MMA event they ever went out and performed for 15 days straight. So yeah, that's that whole thing there.
So we need to get into the topic that you definitely want to cover, which was the nationals. And so obviously we didn't go.
It was in Austin, Texas. It
was going to be challenging, let's say.
You were busy with stuff. I'm not really in a financial situation right now with starting a small business and stuff like that. And so just
anyway.
But then on top of that, I was gonna see if I couldn't ride out with the Del Toro brothers, because originally they were considering doing it. Gil dropped out because he's working on he's hopefully he'll be a lawyer relatively soon. He's working on the bar exam, and unfortunately Angel got an ankle injury, so he that's why he wasn't at nationals. So my understanding is he's starting to recover, but it was just one of those things where unfortunately we just weren't able to go.
All right, well, let's get into the 85. So here was the interesting thing that happened was Edible ended up winning the lightweight men's.
Right, because we have I'll call it a true championship.
Yes, and here's what was funny was he actually dropped his second round match to Troy Headstrom of Ohio Sumo Dayton. So congrats to Troy for pulling off an unlikely upset. And when I watched the video of that match, the crowd would just kind of seem briefly, surprised, but I don't think that home crowd knew the significance of Edibo losing like that.
Yeah,
like if that had been at Lincoln High School, it would have been a completely different reaction.
Well, yeah, because Lincoln High School wasn't full of locals who weren't familiar with sumo. It was full of sumo people. Mm-hmm. It's like when you upset Gil, everyone was like, because they knew what the significance was. Gil was the open weight champion the year in 2023.
Or 3, yeah, one of those, yeah. So yeah, so it ended up being Edibo did take first place. He ended up facing Chad New from Dark Circle Sumo in the true finals. So one of the local boys. And he did have
two local boys because
Edibo did have to beat Mr. Justin Kizzert in the true second match. So Justin taking
he
third.
had to come all the way back through the consolation.
Yeah, that had to have been quite something. And I'm sure a lot of people were I'm sure all the people who had to face him, they may have been thinking, "Oh, what did we get ourselves into?" Because here, yeah, you can see in the round 4 of the repage that he did have to go against Oscar, who you lost to, short of making the round of, I think, short of making the top 4 last year.
Yeah, I did. But that's kind of crazy too that he didn't get there either. I was looking at the level of competition. It's like it was a slightly larger bracket than last year, but then when I actually saw the guys competing, I was just like, I think most of them are at my
Probably a
level.
lot of I would not be surprised if a lot of these, because I see a lot of dark circle. So obviously, when we've seen these tournaments, like when we were at SoCal last year, this year, and when we were at Nationals last year, I think you're going to get a lot of the home people competing at
Yeah,
these
there were a
brackets.
lot of Honu guys competing last year
Yes.
at nationals. So
All right. So going into my weight class, which was the men's 100.
let's give one more shout out though to Justin. For those who don't realize, Justin Kizzard is 42. That
Yeah.
old man showed that he's not he's not down and out just yet.
The way he wrestles, I don't ever discount Justin Kizzard,
Yeah,
Matthew.
he showed up. So,
Okay, so
congrats to him for medaling at nationals
yeah,
again.
Gabe Unick. I think you probably remember Gabe Unick. He took pro.
My first US Open in 2023.
Yeah. So he beat JJ.
He went up in weight, and I didn't realize that he was cut. I knew that he was cutting weight. I didn't realize he was cutting that much weight. So he looked, well, maybe just because of the fact that he was trying to be a little bit more trim, but he looks bigger now, and clearly this weight class worked out for him because he finally won nationals, and he's going to worlds. So congrats to him.
And then
But
our local
also,
boy.
wait a minute, isn't JJ about your isn't JJ about your age?
I think he might be maybe a year or two younger than that. I don't know. I'd have to ask him. So, anyway.
So I would say that JJ, by JJ's performance, he's clearly not. JJ is already both JJ and Justin are kind of in those stages of their lives where they're focusing more on the sport as a whole in spreading it in the US, because JJ wants to do the California Basho series. So but it was nice to see JJ. Well, and it is interesting that you had two former lightweights go up to middleweight and place 1 and 2.
Also, we have a California, one of our California natives, Josh Crook, took 3rd. So that's an interesting thing. But yes, I'm seeing a lot of, definitely a lot of Texas people in these brackets. So congrats to those people. When we're looking at the, let's look here at the men's light heavyweight. So our winner was Sensei Seth once again, and he had to beat Cornelius in the first final, and then he beat TJ Moore from Ohio Sumo in the true finals. So Seth Adams will once again from Raijin will represent the men's light heavyweight at the Worlds. Isn't that something, Matthew?
Yeah, that something I'm gonna point out is that Edibo was with I forget what was the North
Raijin.
Carolina, what?
Raijin.
No, the North Carolina one.
Raijin. Edibo was with Raijin.
He moved to Texas, though.
Yes, he did.
So
I think his registration is still. He probably hasn't fixed his registration yet.
Yeah, because he's with whatever the
Yes,
Houston.
Eric's club is Raijin. You're right. So yes, and then looks like Danny Avila. He did try to. He was at light heavyweight. He just missed. He lost to T.J. Moore. So, and then T.J. Moore beat Cornelius Booker, who I lost to at the open weight last year. So Cornelius took third, TJ Moore took second, and Sensei Seth Adams of Raijin takes the gold at light heavyweight. So Matthew, here's the big guys. So who do we have here? So our winner was Hayden. Hayden Southall.
He placed last year, right? He didn't win it, but he placed.
He took second in the open weight.
Right, where you had to go against him.
I had to go against him, and he had to beat Juan Perez. That's something. Juan Perez is really because I think Juan Perez is remember he's the heavyweight who beat Maxime at the US Open last year.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah. So good for him. That's really something.
Has Hayden won before, or has he just been in the mix and then finally?
Yeah, he's been in the mix as far as I know, but I could be wrong. But
well, to me, what's really crazy is the champ from last year, Jay. Yeah, look, he didn't even place. He got as far as I did.
Yeah. I think, yeah, because Connor Kane from 10th Planet Austin.
I think Robert, that guy is I think he's like he might be from Hawaii or something like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. He was the one who beat Jay Scriven. Well, that's something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's kind of another example of how the Texas clubs kind of all came out that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they certainly did. So, well, we're getting into, so we're kind of running short on time, so we're just going to run right through these. So, wow, look at Cornelius. Cornelius is going.
I think what's his name? What's his name bowed out, I think similar to what Jay did last year, where after he won his open weight, he was like, I'm done, I'm good.
Oh, Hayden?
Yeah,
maybe because obviously if you've already done it, you would want to avoid injury. So that's probably the thought behind that. But looks like Dominus Davis Williams, wow, of Mighty Eagle ended up winning. Well, that's quite something that happens. He beat Connor Kane. So that's two Texas team members right there. And wow, that was a loaded bracket. I'll tell you that. So Cornelius ended up taking third again. Although Jay, here's where Jay really, he had to go against Connor. And so he was one match short of medaling.
Yeah, so he got close, but
he got close, just not close enough to how he did last year. And sounds like the competition was intense. That's some pretty intense competition that they.
Well, did you also notice that of the 5 men, there was only 2 repeat champions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Seth and Edibo.
So, women's 65, Madison Gwynn of War Sumo Club over Jessica Hopper of Mighty Eagle. And then third place, Nancy from Hanu. So we did have a representative there. And women's 73.
Of No Mass and Gun won last year too, so.
Mm-hmm. Ashley of Hanu wins it again. And
repeat
over Caitlin Jones and Eileen West. So that's how The 73
Of
win.
of note, Caitlin Jones is Edibo's girlfriend. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Shogeki Sumo is where Edibo is now.
So the winner of the 80 kilo weight class was I think this is Melanie Miranda from Dallas, and then there's Leah from Hanu.
She was a champion last year, right, Leah?
Right. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
then I don't know how to whoever Miss Hardiman is from Black Dragon Bea. That's an interesting way to register yourself. Okay, so the women's heavyweights. I think this is also the one where we're having a let me see here. So we have Eros. Wow.
Who's been around before, and I think
Mm-hmm.
she actually has won before, but this is the first time since Kelly has been on her streak that
Right.
but then also notice what happened. Who did Eros have to go against?
So she had Mika and then Christina Griffin Jones, and then she beat Kellyanne.
Yeah, Atan is finally stringing it together.
Yeah, she beat Kellyanne. That's quite something. Yeah, that. So, and then in the women's, to kind of wrap up this episode, and then to talk about how things will go in.
Yeah, and then we don't have to talk about the juniors.
Yeah. So let's see how. So in the men's, women's open weight.
Eros did what Hayden did and bowed out.
Right. Yep. And so obviously Kellyanne comes back, so she's going to be representing the U.S. in the open weight instead of the heavyweights.
But again, notice she didn't get an easy walkthrough. Atan beat her again.
Oh yeah,
They had to go best 2 out of 3.
Yeah, they did have to do a best 2 out of 3. That's amazing.
so it's like we all love Kelly, but clearly she's not as dominant as she was not as dominant in that tournament as she has been. That just means, well, you know what that means. If someone's at the top and dominant, it forces everyone else to adjust and evolve. So other people are adjusting and evolving.
Yep. So that's an interesting thing that we're seeing. So, congratulations to all the people who won their weight classes.
We're going to Thailand.
So that's going to be interesting. Since our time is cutting short, we won't talk about the transfer portal. We'll obviously have to move that to our next episode next week. But Matthew, let's talk about really quick while we have 2 minutes left. Next year, Las Vegas. So I think it's safe to say
the only thing we'll have to worry about is what's it called?
Rooming.
The only thing we'll have to worry about is room. We have no excuse not to go.
So yes, Sequoia does plan on being at the US Nationals for 2026, which is going to be held in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I think it'll be exciting because
and especially if they create that 70 kilo weight class, everyone keeps saying, it's like, oh, you've got 20 pounds to lose. It's like, I've got 20 pounds of fat.
Yep. Like me.
I don't work out as much as I could. If I start working out
every day,
if I start working out on a regular basis and actually modifying my diet, not like, extreme dieting, but just modifying the diet, I guarantee I could lose those 20 pounds.
And I'll be at lightweight for next year. So, I expect some stiffer competition.
Well, and then here's the thing: are you going to get down to lightweight? And is Edibo finally have moved up? Because Edibo wants to move up. He wants to gain more weight and move up.
Let him move up. We'll see.
Can you imagine the timing? If he moves up, you move down. I move down.
We'll see, Matthew. We'll see on that. Anyway, Matthew, so that wraps up our episode for today. And so we want to say thank you very much to all our viewers once again for taking this journey with us. And Matthew, as we close out, I guess we will be back with everyone for next week, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, as always, we want to thank you all, and we will be seeing you next time.